There's Newfoundland. So we made it to Newfoundland, or Newfoundland as they call it here, and I'm going to take some windy roads over to Cape Spear, which is the most easternmost point in Canada. So that'll be one of the four corners of Canada. Let's go. So here we are at Cape Spear Lighthouse, the most easterly point in Canada. I made it. Wow. But I'm not done yet. Tomorrow we're going to start on the Newfoundland Trailway, which is, they built a railway in I think the 20s or 30s across the province of Newfoundland. When they finished the road, the railway became economically unviable, so they ripped it up. And now it's almost 1,000-kilometer linear provincial park across the whole province that you're allowed motorized use on. So I'm gonna see if I can't make it across that. I met a couple people on the ferry on ATVs that were doing it, and they seem to have put quite a bit of planning into it, and I've done none whatsoever. So we'll see how that goes. That should be another little mini adventure in an adventure. Cod dogs. Had to try it. Like slightly meaty fish. It's alright. Alright, Newfoundland Trailway time. I just got on the trailway. I skipped about the first 100 kilometers or so, spent the night in St. John's, just picked it up off the highway here. And I've got a feeling it's possible that I've bitten off more than I can chew. So far, it's just really big pieces of gravel and really, really deep. So the big heavy bike is just, it's plowing through it, but it's making me work for it. And then unfortunately, my luggage didn't show up. So I've been forced to get a couple dry bags and put them on the back with all the camping gear and everything. So they're kind of bouncing around, but I'm gonna give it a go and we'll see. I met a bunch of people on the ferry over, ATV guys. This is actually an ATV trail, and it sounds like they've done quite a bit of research putting their trip together. I've done none. So again, we'll see what happens. I have two options. I wanted to also go up north to L'anse Aux Meadows, which is where the Vikings actually were in North America 500 years before Christopher Columbus. So I thought that'd be a really cool place to see. Due to the ferry schedule, having to make the ferry, I won't have time to do all of this and that. So I'm gonna get on here. If for whatever reason it becomes undoable, I'll go up there to L'anse Aux Meadows. I'd love to see both, but I think I feel like I failed if I don't do this. So let's go see what happens. Oh man, that was dumb. Well, that was extremely stupid of me and could have ended really, really badly. I thought I tied my sweater onto the back of the bike and it fucking caught in the rear wheel. That's really embarrassing and really, really dumb. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put this in or not. I know better. Well, let that be a lesson to everybody. Make sure you have everything secured. That's just embarrassing. I know better, and I'm so anal about making sure my straps are all done up and nothing can fall in the rear wheel. Thought I tied off the sweatshirt to the back. Just spent the last hour and a half digging it all out. It wedged itself all the way right through the caliper and everything. So could have ended up a lot worse. Just locked up, skid, stayed upright. What are you gonna do? Story to tell, lesson learned. Make sure you don't leave anything that can fall in the rear wheel. Let's go. All right, so I found a nice little clearing right off the trailway. It's about, I think it's about 6 o'clock. I'm gonna set up camp. I think it gets dark in about an hour and a half or something. I wanna make sure I get the tent up, get some food. My body's just not listening to me anymore. My legs are trying to stand up and they're just not wanting to cooperate. So I'll give them a little bit of a break. Hopefully the weather holds up tomorrow. It looks like it might rain. If it's torrential downpour, I'm not sure I'll stay on the trailway. Just how rocky it is, it's going to be extremely slippery. I'm hoping not. I'm having a blast today. I think I covered about 120 kilometers. Yeah, let's see if we can keep going tomorrow. If not, I'll probably go up to L'anse Aux Meadows, but hoping I can stay on the trailway because this is it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun too. I'm sure this is going to be very appetizing. Please don't spill. This is all the water I have. Please don't spill. Please don't spill. I have no more water. All right, stir it all around. And then leave it for 15-20 minutes. Come back and see if we have dinner. So I'm sure you're all wondering, how does it taste? How do you think it tastes? Honestly, it tastes better than it looks. All right, day 2, let's go. bridges are crazy. All right, so made it another 100 kilometers on the trailway, and two things are becoming very apparent. One is why people do quite a bit of research into their trip, and I've done none. And the second is that with the time that I'm making, there's no way I'm going to be able to get across the trailway and make it to my ferry. So the trailway for the most part runs actually right along the Trans-Canada Highway, or close enough to it. I'm going to hop on that, get over to Badger, Newfoundland, and from Badger to Deer Lake, the trailway juts quite a bit away from the highway. I think about 100 kilometers or so. Takes you out into the middle of nowhere. So I want to try that. And if time works out and I can get that part done today, then I can even see L'anse Aux Meadows. So I can get both the trailway and L'anse Aux Meadows. So wish me luck. All right, so I'm back on the trailway, done another, I don't know, about 50 kilometers or so. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun also. I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up or not, but in the center line in some places, the rock piles from the ATVs, they're like 6 to 8 inches high and about a foot wide. So I've crossed over a couple times and it's a bit dicey, so you got to kind of stick in your lane. I met a couple just down the road on 2 motorcycles coming the opposite way. First bikes I've seen in 2 days, and they told me it gets really, really gnarly up here. So looking forward to it. Should be interesting. Put myself to the test. It's really interesting on pavement. It's all about precision. Like, precision's the #1 important thing to riding safely or fastly on pavement. And I don't want to say it's the opposite here, because that's not true, but you can't expect the same level of precision I'm learning. You have to, you know, when you hit deep gravel and the handlebars start shaking, if you grab a hold tight and try and force it where you want to go, you're going to go down. So you almost have to let off the handlebars so the front end does what it wants, give it a little bit of gas to lighten the front end, and it just kind of picks its way through. So we'll see how well my theory serves me going forward here, but yeah, unbelievable. Well, the inevitable happened. She just caught one of the trees, hit the handlebar, went into that little middle berm thing that I've been trying to avoid, and just, but I didn't have too much warning, enough time that I knew it was coming, and just straight into the hedges. Whew, it was bound to happen. Glad I didn't break my ankle. It got twisted under there and it feels fine, so thank God for that. Get the bags off, get it up. Hopefully there's no damage done. I'm a fucking long way from anywhere. I really hope it's not damaged. So yeah, I'll check back in a second. And Would you believe I turned the camera off like 3 minutes before that happened? I was going along third gear. Again, these rocks are real slippy. It doesn't look like anything's broken. Started right back up. I'll see if anything's bent or shaking when I start going, but it's the third time actually that the bike's been dropped. Second time, first time at speed, second time with a little bit of speed. And yeah. A little bit of grass, but I mean, she looks all right. Bark busters did their job. Handlebars don't look bent. I'm glad I got that aftermarket bar. It's a lot stronger than the factory one. Yeah. And with a healthy dose of caution instilled into me, we continue on. These wet rocks are absolutely treacherous. Yeah, something's a little crooked. All right, I got about another 250 kilometers on the trail done today, plus 100 on the road. The 250 on the trail really put me through my paces, and poor Molly. She's just getting the shit beaten out of her. For any of you that this is your thing, hats off and kudos to you. It is a lot more difficult than I anticipated. I'm only realizing now after having dropped the bike how foolhardy a plan this potentially was to do this all on my own with no skills. But I gotta say, I'm kind of proud. I feel a sense of accomplishment doing the remote stretch here that I wanted to. I think I'm probably gonna get up to L'anse Aux Meadows, find somewhere here to camp for the night and get something to eat. I'm absolutely ravenous. I'll show you the war wounds we got going on here. So she's okay. For some reason, the back brake doesn't work. It just goes right to the floor. I suspect it has something to do with the sweater incident. But after the sweater pulled everything out, it went to the floor again. But I just pumped up some pressure into it and it started working. And then after the accident, for some reason, it's not working. I don't know if maybe when I dropped it, it dislodged something. I don't know. When I get home, I'm going to have to take the wheel and the caliper off and figure that out. I'm going to have to get a tire anyway. I got a new tire in Halifax and it's just absolutely getting chewed through. There's a couple little, just little war wounds. Nothing too bad. Nothing that looks like it's going to cause me any problems. The biggest problem at this point is the handlebar. Pretty sure it's the handlebar that's bent. Hopefully it's nothing else. I think this is just pushed back a little bit. But yeah, so the first one, it was definitely just me going too fast. Lesson learned, don't go as fast as you can. Keep a little bit in reserve because, you know, as soon as stuff starts getting wobbly, your human instinct takes over and you close the throttle, which just, you know, grabs the front end and you're gone. It's really funny how you have to go against human instinct to ride safely. It's the same thing on sport bikes. You know, if you're leaned over and you start pushing wide, you want to unwind the throttle, but that just leans you up. Really, if you need to get on the throttle and lean it in more. It's just really counterintuitive. Same thing on this. You know, when the front end starts getting washy, you can't let off the throttle because it's just going to dig in and wipe you out. You got to roll on the throttle, unload that front end and let it just pick its way through. So the physics at work are actually really, really interesting in how counterintuitive they are. And the second one, I think, was just me being jittery after having just dropped the first one and being a little thrown off with the geometry of the handlebar being bent back. It felt really awkward at first. Took me a little while to get used to it. And yeah, I think that was just me being jittery and dumb and just... Anyway, it's time for me to set up camp for the night and get something to eat. So today we are taking the Viking Trail all the way north to the very northern tip of Newfoundland. We started the day off going through Grossmoor National Park. It's a beautiful, I think 20-30 kilometer winding drive up and down through the mountains, sea on one side, mountains on the other. Just breathtaking. It's a little bit of a challenge without a rear brake, but just keeps it interesting. The wind here also keeps it interesting. The wind is just crazy on this little northern tip of the peninsula here. I'm gonna see if I can get some pictures of the trees or some video of the trees. I'm not sure how well it's gonna show up on camera, but the trees from the wind are just, some of them are just completely uprooted and the other ones are really bent over, and I'll see if I can show you that. And I got a surprise when we get up to L'anse Aux Meadows. So about 1,000 years ago, Leif Erikson took between 60 and 90 men from a colony that the Norse or the Vikings had in Greenland. Now that colony only was about 500 strong, so to take 60 to 90 people, that's a fair, chunk of the population at the time. They sailed in your typical Viking boats, open, small boats, all the way across from Greenland to the northern tip here of Newfoundland. Mainly they were in search of hardwood lumber, which I find hard to believe, but I guess in Greenland there's not a huge amount of lumber. So for a few decades they set up a camp here, and for decades they were coming back and forth getting lumber and supplies, and I'm assuming probably some whales and stuff. Eventually it just became unsustainable for a population of 500 back in Greenland to finance this journey back and forth. Just wasn't sustainable for them, and they abandoned it. I believe one of the contributing factors was also the indigenous people in the area were not overly friendly to them. So what's really cool about this is this site was only discovered in the 1960s by some Norwegian historian, or I'm not sure exactly what he was. And the way that they found it is the stories of the Greenland colony setting up camp here passed down over 1,000 years through oral traditions and are known as the Vinland sagas. So if you're interested, you can go and read the Vinland saga about Leif Erikson and his journey over here. Just incredible. I can't imagine how inhospitable this place must be. Like in the 6 hours that I drove north, the temperatures dropped at least 10 degrees. It's only about 14 degrees and it's the middle of August. What hardy people to make that journey over the ocean and then stay here. So anyways, the Norwegian historian fellow, or whoever he was exactly, he got these oral traditions, the Vinland sagas. They're now written down, you can read them. But he basically put the information together that it provided, put two and two together, figured it must have been on the north coast of Newfoundland, came out here and started asking the locals, hey, is there any unusual mounds or walls or anything like that? And yeah, they said, oh, the old Indian mound. Goes, and sure enough, it was the remains of the original encampment from the first Europeans in North America 1,000 years ago, 500 years before Christopher Columbus. So cool. Imagine showing up though and seeing this. These mounds are the remains of the original huts that the Vikings built 1,000 years ago. You can walk on them and everything. There is a reconstruction over the other way. There's a reconstruction where you can go in and see what these would have looked like. But right now, I'm standing in where Leif Erikson very well could have slept 1,000 years ago. It's incredible. There's a bunch of other just like workshops and dwellings and storage and the like all around here. It's amazing. What a fairly elaborate setup considering the time ago and the resources that they had and the fact that they were coming over from Greenland. This wasn't even a colony. This was just like a camp for resources. And it blows my mind that they did all that for just to get wood. Let's go check out the replicas here. The walls were all made out of peat. So if you don't know what peat is basically the ground turf, they call it in Ireland, that's pulled out and made into bricks.
So here we are at this very place in this beautiful house of 7 rooms, and this was Leif Erikson's bedroom.
Alright, this is what they think was where Leif Erikson would have slept. I can't believe I'm standing on Leif Erikson's bed. And he said that there was a hearth with a big stone hearth that they put in here. There's still a stone sticking out of the ground that the Vikings would have put here 1,000 years ago. So the gentleman I was speaking to said that and I didn't realize this, they even brought women and slaves with them, and they would spend up to 2 to 3 years at a time here. So they'd come here 2 to 3 years, they suspect to try and get lumber. Not a huge amount of lumber around here, not good quality lumber anyway. But yeah, they'd bring women, slaves. I asked them who the slaves were, would they just get any people? He said, no, not just anyone, the Irish. Yeah, so they'd come here 2, 3 years, go back, might be a few years before they came back, but he said they figured they spent around 8 to 12 years here total, over between 3 and 5 expeditions over 20, 30 years. So look, here's some of those trees. I was telling you the trees are just blown flat. Check this out. Well, that's almost it for me. I made it back to Nova Scotia on the ferry. I'm going to try and get home in the next 2-3 days, do a quick turnaround on the bike. She's long overdue for an oil change. I've done about 6,000 kilometers in the last 2 weeks, and I have another 2.5 to cover in the next, I want to do it in 2, but realistically it's probably going to be 3 days. Try and get the handlebars straightened, try and figure out the rear brake. I've come to the conclusion, I think I've popped the rear master cylinder, so I think I'm gonna have to replace the rear brake cylinder on it. Hopefully get that all turned around and head back off to the west and the north. I'm a little concerned about the north because I'm running into winter in the Arctic, so that should be interesting. Hopefully I've kept you guys entertained. If you want to see more, you can subscribe and be notified when I complete the rest of the trip. And you have any questions or comments, put it down. I try and respond to everybody. Yeah, we'll see you on the other side.